All right, here we are on the verge of free agency, so I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to predict where players go. I have a very good chance of being wrong. Quite wrong. Lucic. We'll start with Lucic. Edmonton is the front runner in my eyes. Um, the smile he had on his face when he came out of the new arena, for whatever reason, just the optics of it. Chiarelli was his GM in Boston. He had his best years with Chiarelli as GM. So there's a familiarity there, and I think he would want to go there. Second on the list, you would think is Vancouver, but apparently he met with the Dallas Stars. So Dallas is in on this. And part of the reason that I have Dallas second on the list is simple. I think the team that makes the last pitch probably has a chance to make the best pitch. So Vancouver I have third because he met with them first. Potentially it was to get it out of the way. I don't know if he wants to come back to Vancouver. I know he's a hometown boy, but I really don't know that he wants to come back. Louis Eriksson. This has to be a Vancouver one, right? No. I see Detroit as a front runner. And I've got Detroit on this list a lot because Detroit is, with Datsuk retiring, Zetterberg's on his way down, they want to make a big splash in free agency. And they have the cap space thanks to getting rid of Datsuk's contract to do it. Louis Eriksson's a good fit there because they really like European forwards, defensemen, you name it. Hasek proved they kind of don't mind the idea of having a European goaltender either. So for Eriksson, Detroit makes the most sense. But Detroit shows up on the list a lot because if they miss out on one, they may go for the next. I have Vancouver second on the list. I think Vancouver will give a lot of money to Louis Eriksson. I think Jim Benning is desperate to shore up that top six. I think he's desperate to get the Canucks back to the playoffs next year and save his job. If they miss the playoffs again, he'll lose his job because the Aquilinis don't allow the team to miss the playoffs. He's the first GM to survive missing the playoffs once. The entire time the Aquilinis have owned the team, as far as I know. Nonis, team misses once, he's out. Gillis, team misses once, he's out. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure if Burke, if he had more than a year, but Vancouver has extreme ADHD when it comes to making the playoffs, which causes you not to build a Stanley Cup contender. It causes you to build a team that just makes the playoffs and then is exposed in a 7-game series. So Eriksson I could see in Vancouver, and third on my list I have Arizona, because Arizona has a ton of cap space, and they have a very young GM who thinks outside the box. And I do believe analytic numbers show Louis Eriksson to be a really solid player. Frans Nielsen. Very good center. Hasn't really been talked about in the offseason. But now that Stamkos has signed and is staying in Tampa, he becomes Detroit's number one center in terms of what they're looking at. They can sign Eriksson and Nielsen. And if you think about it, the way they could play that to the press, I mean, if you add Eriksson and Nielsen to the Red Wings top six, and you're not subtracting anybody, there's no draft picks because they're free agents, suddenly Detroit becomes a pretty damn good team again. Nielsen's a really solid player. I really like his game. Goes well beyond the points, which is why Toronto's going to be in on him too. I really believe that they want to shore up that center ice position. They didn't get Stammer. Nielsen makes sense. Nielsen can play a lot of different roles. He's not a point-of-game guy. He's not as much flash and dash as Toronto might want, but he's in their wheelhouse. And third on the list, I have Minnesota, because Minnesota, rumors are they're going to be active. I could see him being a signing for them. Kyle Okposo, I don't understand why everybody's focusing on Lucic. I think Okposo's a better player than Lucic, personally. He's not a bigger name, but I think he's a better player. And Toronto, I have as the front runner for Okposo. Now, could they sign Okposo and Nielsen? Probably not. So if they get one, they probably can't get the other. But Lou and Brendan Shanahan really want to make a big splash. And they wanted Stamkos. They didn't get him. So next up, Kyle Okposo would be a good consolation prize, and I honestly think he fits exactly what Toronto needs. I have Boston number 2 on this list just because Boston seems to be in the running for a top 6 forward, and Lucic doesn't seem to be interested in Boston. So Okposo is, I don't know why he'd be a consolation prize, but I guess that's what he is. And then I have New Jersey third on the list just because they have so much cap space. And Jersey has a solid goalie in Corey Schneider, who's in his prime. They just picked up Hall from the Oilers. If you add Okposo as well, suddenly they're scary. Andrew Ladd. Ladd's tricky. Ladd's tricky because he's perceived as being on his way down. Chicago can't afford to make him an offer. If they could, I would have Chicago number 1 on this list. Colorado can, so I have Colorado first. Buffalo I have second because, again, the guy's on his way down. Buffalo may throw more money at him than somebody else. And Ladd might be thinking, if he sees a Buffalo offer, well, I can play on a wing with Reinhart or with Eichel. Yeah, I'll probably get a lot of points, and that would make sense. And I have Carolina third, so him going home, where the whole thing started. It happens where guys go back. I mean, look, Brad Boyes went to Toronto 15 years after they drafted him or whatever it was. So it happens. Michael Bodker's next on the list. I'm scared of Bodker because I've got him on a different list I've got down here as well. Bodker, I have Florida as the front runner. Again, they sign European forwards. They're showing a lot of overturn since the playoffs. They want to get back there. And even though Bodker has horrible underlying numbers, he's young-ish. He's not as young as he was, and he's not as young as people make him out to be. I think what you see is what you get, but Florida might think they can get more out of him than what has been shown so far early in his career. I have Detroit second. He only goes to Detroit if they miss out on Okposo and Nielsen. If Detroit is desperate, he's in that second tier. And again, because his underlying numbers are not good, I can't see Detroit signing him, but if they don't get the first 2, then Detroit. And then I have like a third. In third, I have 2 teams. I have Winnipeg, because Winnipeg wants to fix things, and I think Bodker's the kind of guy they might look to replace what Frolik brought to them. I know they got Lanny. I know Lanny's coming in, but Bodker would give them solid depth, and Lanny isn't going to kill their cap, so if Winnipeg wants to get back to the playoffs, it could be a value signing, but I have them tied with Vancouver because I have a bad feeling Vancouver's going to offer Bodker a shit ton of money. I got a bad feeling that Benning is going to offer him a 6-year, $5 million a year type contract, and then stand there and argue that eventually our first line's going to be Bodker, Granlund, and Edom, and then we'll all shoot ourselves. I don't know why Backus on the TSN list. I just went with the TSN list. Backus was next on the list after Bodker. I don't think they watched the playoffs. Backus is fantastic. He doesn't score as many points as you want from a first-line center, so he's not a first-line center, but he's a solid second-line center. And I know he's 32, so his best years are probably behind him, but I think there'll be interest on the East Coast. I think the Rangers would be front-runners for Backus. The Devils and the Islanders I have at second and third. The Islanders have space, cap space. Will they use it? I don't know. I don't know what the status is right now in the Islanders. They went to Brooklyn, which should have fixed things, but it really didn't because that arena is not built for hockey. And they have to be losing money because their attendance wasn't great this year either. So it's hard to predict what the Islanders are going to do. Jason Demers. I have New Jersey as a front runner. Why? Because they traded Adam Larson. So you trade out a top 4 defenseman. And much like Edmonton trades Hall, well, what do? You bring in Lucic. So then the trade becomes Hall and Demers for Lucic and Larson, and suddenly it's kind of an even deal. So to me, he fits in Jersey. I have the Rangers at second because he fits in with the Rangers too. More defensively responsible than some of the guys they've had. Would take some of the pressure off some of the Rangers D. And then in third, I have Edmonton just because he was there. I don't think they're done fixing their defense. And I think if you add Demers and Larson to the blue line in Edmonton, I think you suddenly have a really solid top 6. And then we can start talking about Edmonton actually getting better. Troy Brouwer. Here's where my favoritism shows up. I love Troy Brouwer. I do. I think with what he's shown and with what he's able to do, Boston I think would be a front runner. They're looking for a power forward if they can't get a Pozo, and they may not be able to because Jacobs may not pay the money. Brouwer would be an excellent consolation prize. Dallas. He helped knock Dallas out of the playoffs. I could see Dallas signing him as sort of a, well, you knocked us out, we're going to grab you kind of thing. And then I have Vancouver in third because he stated in an interview that he would love to play for the Canucks. He grew up cheering for the Canucks. He's a local boy. So there you go. My 3 teams, I have all of them in the Brouwer hunt because I can. Brian Campbell is number 10 on their list. Campbell's going to sign for cheap. I really believe that, and I think he wants to win. So Chicago was rumored to be, I was reading on TSN, there's a rumor that Chicago wants Campbell back. Fantastic. He'd fit, he'd slide right in there, no problem. And he'll sign for cheap so that he doesn't break their cap. I have Ottawa in here because Ottawa is one of those middle-of-the-road teams that with the right signing could be better. And they might offer more money to Brian Campbell than the other teams do. They might. It's really tough predicting that Ottawa's going to spend money, though. It's hard for me to even say it. And third on the list, I have Dallas, because Dallas has lost a lot of defensive depth, and I'm not sure what the hell they're doing. But yeah, there's that. Now, other than the top 10, value signings, so guys who I think are going to sign for relatively cheap compared to what they've been making and are going to be worth it. David Perron, I think, is going to be a value signing somewhere. Eric Stahl is, because he's been so overpaid, he's now going to be underpaid. It's like a Brad Richards thing, where that it all evens out. I think Eric Stahl is going to sign a 2-year deal somewhere for cheap and prove people wrong. I don't think he's done. Yuri Hudler is another one that I think has gone under the radar, and I think he'll sign for relatively cheap compared to what he's been making. And Thomas Vanek, who just got bought out, if he gets the right team and the right situation, and I'm thinking New Jersey, but if the right spot comes up, I could see him getting back to, say, 20 to 25 goals and making 1.5 to 2 million just to prove himself. Now, if I were a GM, I would be pursuing the following: Louis Eriksson, Kyle Okposo, David Backes, Troy Brouwer, James Reimer, and Stempniak. And Stempniak I would be pursuing because all the guy does is score points and then sign for cheap. And I'm not sure why that happens with Lee Stempniak. He's a good utility forward who puts up decent points for the amount of ice time he gets and for the opportunities he gets. I'd have him on my team. And James Reimer's, I don't know where he goes. There's nobody who needs a starter anymore. So unless Calgary does something crazy and decides to sign him and go with a 1A, 1B with him and Elliott, and I can't see it. I can't, because that doesn't work. I just don't know where else Reimer goes, because everybody else is apparently set at starter. I would love to see him in Vancouver. I'd love to see him in Dallas. I'd love to see Dallas get rid of one of their finish goaltenders and replace them with Reimer, and it doesn't matter which one, because Reimer will outplay either of them. And finally, final thing I'm going to bring up here. There's going to be some guys overpaid tomorrow. There's going to be contracts that get signed that turn into buyouts. And we all look on free agency day and everybody says, oh, what a great win. You know, oh, look, the Maple Leafs went out and bought a bunch of really big, tough defensemen. And then 2 years later, they're all gone. There's the Colorado. Oh, they signed Solani and Korea for cheap. Oh, they're going to be deadly. Nope. That's why, when people say, well, who won on draft day? It's hard to say because we're seasons away from knowing who won on draft day. But some guys I think are going to get overpaid and they're going to be the future buyout candidates. Remember, when Vanek signed in Minnesota, all I heard that summer was with Vanek and Parise, they're Stanley Cup contenders. Oh, they got Vanek, Parise, and Suter. They're Stanley Cup contenders. They could win everything. And I'm like, no. So part of the reason I have this channel now is because when everybody's saying this crazy shit, I go, it's just a couple of players, and they've never shown that they can win it before, so why are they going to win it now? I like Parise's game, but he was better in Jersey. He should have stayed in Jersey. Overpaid tomorrow, Lucic. It goes without saying that Milan Lucic is going to back up a Brinks truck to whichever team is giving him a mint tomorrow, and he's not worth it. He's not worth $7 million a year, and that's where I think he's going to end up. He made $6 million, and apparently the Kings were offering him $6 million, and he said no. So he has to make more than that, or it means he didn't want to stay with the Kings. And yet, after their failure in the playoffs, and after they were out, he said he wanted to spend the rest of his career in LA. So clearly, he would have given them a deal. He's not going to give anybody else a deal. Michael Bodker. He's young, and he'll get too much money and probably too much term. Jason Demers, because it's a weak free agency for defensemen. The list is short. Teams are going to overpay for Demers, and right under him is Chris Russell. Chris Russell is going to get overpaid tomorrow. And last on my list is Matt Martin. If there's a bidding war for Matt Martin's services, he's a fourth-line forward. He can score you 10 to 15 goals a year, maybe 15 at most, but I don't see it with him. I know he hits like a Mack truck, but I'd rather have Clutterbuck than Matt Martin. I would. I just don't see it. He made $1 million last year, and I think that's less than what he's worth, but not by a lot. I think 1.5, maybe 1.7, but somebody's probably going to give him 3. And when you look in the new NHL, if you have guys on your bottom line or your third line, / fourth line, guys who play third and fourth, and they're making $2 million plus, you're not managing your cap very well. And teams are going to show that they can't manage the cap tomorrow. Part of the reason the GMs are panicking is the cap has gone flat. So all of these contracts they sign, and they go, well, next year we'll have more money. And I think GMs have signed these contracts with the idea of, okay, well, the cap will keep going up. So we'll sign this contract now, and it'll be expensive, but 3 years from now it'll be considered a bargain. Cap's not going up. May not go up next year either. So what happens? These contracts are expensive now, and they're expensive later. And yeah, tomorrow is going to be all about getting back to the cap and spending a lot of money. And there's going to be some smart teams that don't. Sometimes the smartest team in free agency is the one that does nothing, because they're the one that have cap space, and they can afford to pick and choose later on down the road what to do. Because if a team comes to them and goes, hey, we have no cap space and we have to get rid of this guy, we got cap space. All right, how many draft picks do you think you're going to have to throw us for us to take that shitty contract off your hands? Which team would you rather be? The one with the crappy contract, or the one that's got the cap space and you can take on that contract, but you can also add some draft picks? And maybe they take a player you don't want anymore. they don't really want him either, but hey, you didn't sign that crappy contract. It's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. So now I'm going to post this, and I fully expect huge trades to go down as soon as I post it. Like yesterday when I posted and I went, all right, well, I'm done for today. Yeah, I expect big action to go on in the NHL as soon as this has been posted on my YouTube account. So thanks for watching. Barely over 20 minutes. So for those people who don't like the really long videos, I'm sorry, but this is free agency. This is one of those things I can't condense down to 5 minutes because I got to make predictions so that tomorrow I'm completely wrong. And even though I'm sitting here and I'm saying I'm going to be completely wrong, when I'm wrong, people are still going to come on and be like, see, you were wrong. You had no idea. All of them signed in Buffalo. Buffalo signed all 10 of the top free agents. Now they're going to win the cup. That's not going to happen. Anyways, that would be hilarious though, wouldn't it? If like all of the marquee free agents all were like, we love Buffalo. It is such a wonderful metropolitan area. And in the winters, it's so warm and wonderful. Yeah, there'd be some serious drug testing going on in Buffalo at that point. Alrighty, thanks for watching.